Hello, everyone. I'm here with Dr. Seth Kostick. I'm really excited. He talks about non-duality, science, and the mind. And just a little bio. Seth Kostick was captivated by the ostensible ability of science to unlock and play with the mystery of our apparent universe. Hello, Seth. How are you?
Hi, Emerson. Thank you very much for having me on.
No, thank you.
It's really fun to talk about this stuff. Thanks. I enjoy this.
Seth is going to be a part of the Nothing conference that's happening in September. And my first question is, which I'm going to ask all of the speaker is, what is nothing?
I think you could take that from two sort of different main points of view. So there's the concept of nothing not equals nothing. And then there's what people refer to as non-duality, or the empty nothing that contains and is creating the concept. So nothing as a concept is a limit of consciousness's infinite potential made of knowing that it's not equals nothing. So you have these complementary opposites that, according to our physics, are at an orthogonal or 90-degree angle from each other. And they're literally made of knowing they're not each other. So if this is nothing here, the 90-degree or complementary opposite to this nothing is this perpendicular limit or vector. And the concept of nothing not equals nothing is this resultant hypotenuse. So every vector or every concept is made out of these two 90-degree orthogonal takes. So take is what from the Latin means sept. And con, these takes, this is one sept and here's another sept. Together, they make this resulting vector, this concept from these two. So that's why every apparent thing is manifest from concepts, from takes that are literally made of knowing that they're not each other. So the only substance to any concept is knowing, because the only thing to this thing over here is knowing, and the only thing to this thing over here is knowing. And they're literally made out of knowing that they're not each other. And so you can just check this out in your own experience. Like, could you grasp nothing not equals nothing? Like, what would that be? Like, right now, between the camera and what I think is me, I know that there's nothing here, right? It's transparent. That's why you could see what you believe is Seth here, because there's nothing here. But that nothing, this nothing that's between the camera, is a conceptual interference product. This is what we take nothing to be, this transparency. And then this hand or something that's blocking me out now, you're taking that to be something. But within the concept, that something would be the not equals nothing. So there's this conceptual nothing something, or conceptual nothing not equals nothing. But then the real nothing, the real absolute or non-relative or non-conceptual nothing would contain both nothing something. It's the totality. But that totality is not graspable because it has no edge. See, to grasp something with the mind, there has to be a handle or an edge or a surface or a limit. There has to be something there so that you could get a hold of it. But nothing not equals nothing. There's no edge to it. You couldn't tell me what a nothing not equals nothing is. It's both. It's a superposition of limits. So it's not graspable. And so this is just where people get confused with things, is that all of the apparent things in experience are conceptual interference. They're these concepts that are transparent, ungraspable, that when they interfere with each other, produce the illusion of something graspable. So you get into this with like nothing, not equals nothing, and then the real emptiness of the actuality of a real totality of nothing. You get in this like with truth, true false statements, and then truth. Like what truth really is this infinite, which means infinite means it does not mean large. It's not a number. It means unlimited. So something with no limits is this infinite truth because it is what is. It's the being that's here. But within the mind, if you go within this activity of consciousness, knowing these opposites, now you get into true false. And so something can be conceptually true if it's not conceptually false. But the concept of true false is made of and is occurring within the actual infinite truth. And so these are just kind of things like once you start to wake up, you realize what you're doing, that you're conceptualizing your own being, your being, the only being that is here, this infinite totality of truth. You're conceptualizing that into these complementary opposites that produce these concepts. That when these concepts interfere with each other, now you can have the illusion of an edge or boundary to something that you could grasp it. And so that's the little game, because the word game, and I love this word. It's from
I love that.
yeah. Well, you have the game of life, and people. When I say game, I don't mean triviality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look up the definition of a game, you'll see it's an activity that is done for a diversion or for amusement. So I love diversion because if there's only this infinite totality of consciousness here, for example, with our concept of nothing something or nothing not equals nothing. So now we have this resultant concept. I have to ignore something to pay attention to nothing. If I have them both simultaneously, I don't know what I'm talking about. It makes no sense. It would be like left and right. Touch that left-right object in front of you. Well, which one? This left one or this right one? You would have no idea what I'm talking about. You couldn't grasp that with the mind. But if I ignore rightness and I only look at left, I could say, touch that left object. Oh yeah, the one to my left. I understand that. I can grasp it. So this game is ignoring certain limits within these concepts. And that's what you're doing. You're ignoring certain limits within concepts to pay attention to things. And that's how you can play around here. And the other very interesting part of the word game is that, yeah, you play games. Well, illusion comes from the word ludere, which means to play. So you're playing in this illusion of finite. There is only the infinite here. You're ignoring that infiniteness so that you can just look at one part or partial activity of your own being. And that's why I like the word game. And we're here playing these games. We're ignoring ourselves to play around in our own being. Something that Rupert Spira said, and I don't know where he got this from because I don't I don't really research this stuff. But he said, and I don't know, this might be from the Sufis or something. It's God masks itself in itself. It's pulling a blanket of itself over its own eyes and then looking at it and pretending it's not itself. And this is what we're seeing. So anytime that you're seeing the illusion of finite, anytime you're seeing an object, something with edges, boundaries, limits, you're seeing the game. You're seeing the ignorance of your own infinite being. It's very much like a sculptor that's got a big piece of marble here. In that marble is an infinite number of statues. Every statue that you could possibly conceive of is in that marble. And all you have to do is ignore the marble that is not the sculpture that you want to see. And you could ignore that marble in all kinds of, an infinite number of ways, but you ignore that marble, and the way we ignore the marble in the physical, or the illusion of a physical reality, is we chip away at it, right? Consciousness can't chip away at itself because there's nowhere else to go. There's only this infinite singularity here. So instead of chipping away at it, it just has to ignore it. So you could look at just a solid piece of rock, and with your own imagination, just look at it and pretend you took pieces of rock away to reveal the statue of David or something, right? That's what consciousness is doing. It's ignoring pieces of itself to see the illusion of something that appears other than itself. But when you really look into it, oh, what's that thing really made of? You'll find nothing but yourself there. There's nothing but your own infinite being here. So
That's brilliant.
Maybe that was a little long-winded.
No. This is great.
Okay.
Speaking of Alan Watts, I really like that, you are it. And I think that that's just a lot of people, a lot of seekers don't get that. Expand on that one, because I know that you can really expand on that one, that you are it. And it's just such a, when in seeking, right, it's almost kind of like that's the question, or that's a statement that puts people to a stop.
Yeah, it's just so simple and gets to the point. So I think people, they just, at some point, maybe they have like this existential crisis, or, who am I? Who am I really? Like, what am I? And people will travel all over the globe. You hear this all the time. Oh, I got to go to India to find myself, right? And this is hilarious to me.
You have to go to a retreat.
Yeah, you have to go to a retreat. You have to go somewhere, anywhere but here, right? So, because if it was already right here, I would have found it, right? So, I think, just personally for me, from my perspective and all the limits. So again, these concepts, there's an infinite amount of them that I'm interfering to produce the illusion of Seth here. So some of the limits that are interfering were the illusion of my whole childhood, right? So every concept that I had in my childhood. So one of the biggest things that my father and I, what we would do is we would play tag, and we would hide all over the farm, and he was really good at hiding. He'd tag me and he'd say, "You're it." And then I didn't want to be it. Like, that was my thing. Oh, I'm it. I don't want to be it. And he would hide, and I have to count to 100 or something. And he was so good at hiding. He was a master at it. Like, he like knew the psychology of a child or something, right? He would find all these places, like hiding in plain sight. You couldn't find them. So I just hated being it. I was like, I don't want to be it. And to finally be able to tag him and say, you're it, that was like this little fun little game that we used to play. And it's just funny to me in this whole non-duality, kind of realizing, I'm it. And then realizing back that the little game that I used to play as a kid is like this microcosm of the macrocosm. It is like this little game. It's like, no, I see what's going on here. It is this game of hide and seek. It's this game of realizing that you're it, you're this totality, you're the only being that's here, and then hiding from yourself, and then trying to find yourself again. I don't, I can't say that that's like, that's it, like that's what it is. But from my entire, or the illusion of my entire life experience, I can see that this is as close as I can get right now to this, to what this is, this little game. It's this game of hide and seek. Now, it's more than just a game of hide and seek. It's a perfection, because it's doing all these things that you really want, that you don't even know that you want, behind the scenes. It's a way to ignore yourself, because when you run up against your own infinite being, it's you can't. Again, these are complementary opposite takes. This is what the mind is. It's knowing this is not this. These takes, these sets, these concepts. When you run up against your infinite being and you are you finally give up these takes. You can't take it. So you can't take it anymore. You literally can't take your own infinite being. And I mean that both ways. You can't limit it into these illusion of these takes, and you can't take it. Like, it's just too much. Like, you will be destroyed, because you are these takes. A Seth is made out of knowing that he's not Emerson. Seth is made out of knowing that he's not President Trump. Seth is made out of knowing that he's not Rupert Spiro. So a Seth is it's a take within a concept of a perspective. And when you can't take it anymore, you're dead. You're no longer here as a perspective. And when this being, I mean, it's infinite. The infinite and the finite are fundamentally, well, there's no real finite here. It's the illusion of finite. But when you stop ignoring your being through this conceptualization activity, and you just become the totality, it's again, you can't take it. It's too much. It's just, you realize why you're hiding here, because this is fun. This is ignorance is bliss, right? So you're ignoring yourself here. You're having a good time. You're being ignorant. Even you stubbing your toe or terrible stuff, like, this is a relief from your infinite being. You know, I hear all the time, oh, God is love, and okay, God is love. It's not a love that you have any conception of. The love for your father or your child or for chocolate ice cream or something like that. This is a joke of love. This is a pleasant love. It's love that is limited to something that you can at least experience as the illusion of a finite being. But God's love is a destruction of your being. It is a complete obliteration of the little happy, ignorant illusion that you have here. So people are like, oh yeah, God is love. Yeah, not a love that you could grasp, and not a love that you would survive. So it's a love that's so powerful that is
unknowable.
In what?
Unknowable. You can't know it. It's just
yes.
It's so unconditional and unknowable and humble, and it's just beyond words. I think, it's just, it's one of those things.
It's beyond words. It is literally, people say things. So again, from my perspective and how do I try to frame this, I say that there's only knowing here. That's the only thing. So when somebody says like it's unknowable, no, you're knowing it. It's just not an object. So there's a difference between like, okay, again, getting back to this whole, there's the concept of knowing not equals knowing. And then there's the knowing that's creating these opposites. It's both of them. The knowing is both. So there's only knowing. But if you're knowing both of them at the same time, it's not limited because these are limits. So when you're knowing the concept the concept is not a finite thing that you can grasp. You need interference to ignore this one so that you can see this one. So even though this one doesn't exist without this one. So they're both occurring. It's just transparent. It's infinite. You can't know it as an object. But the only being there is knowing. So when people say things are unknowable, no. There's only knowing. So the only thing you can know is knowing. And that's the only being here. It's an ignorance of that knowing. So the unknowableness is, no, I can't know it as a thing, an object with limits, because it's the being that is making the limits. And if I no longer pay attention to those limits, there are no limits. There is no thing here. And so, yes, the things that I thought were this knowing, that is no longer knowable as an object. But the only being here is this knowing. So it's just, I'm not saying that other perspectives are wrong or anything like that. It's just a perspective. And even the words that I'm saying, I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying I love the way I talk about this. So I like the way that this kind of works because it dovetails into how quantum physics and relativity, and like this is sort of my background. So I love the science of it. But again, and I think people, they may confuse, like, none of the physics or any of science or any of religion, any of this is correct. It's an ignorance of the truth. No matter which system or beliefs or anything, if you're talking about the illusion of finite, you're always ignoring truth because you can't have the truth and then pay attention to falsehood. Right? Because if the truth is the being that is making these opposites, then in order to have something conceptually true or false, I have to ignore the totality of truth to get there. So, I don't even know where I was going with that.
But really greatly put. Really greatly put.
Well, it's just put from this perspective viewpoint of it. But we're, there's a great meme or some kind of image out there that really kind of gets at this whole problem that we have, that we're like, oh, the way that guy says it is wrong, and oh, this guy's right, and no. There's this meme where there's a circle, right? There's actually a cylinder, okay, a three-dimensional cylinder. And from one direction, cylinder, if you project light on it, right, it makes a square because you're looking at it from the sideways point of view, right? And then from an orthogonal 90-degree angle, it's a circle because if I turn the cylinder this way, it's a circle. So you've got one guy, your two perspectives, all they can see is the projections. They don't see the actual cylinder there. One's yelling at the other one saying, "It's a rectangle, you dumbass. It's a rectangle." And the other one's saying, "It's a circle. You're an idiot. It's a circle." But they're both looking at the projections of the same cylinder. So it's like, no, you've got to give up your positions, zoom out of this thing. Oh my God, it's a cylinder. Both these guys are seeing the same thing. They're both correct. They're just looking at it from two different perspectives. And so that's just the thing, is each of us here talking, it's the illusion of our perspectives that consciousness is knowing. And
I like that. It's like the infinite expression. It's just different infinite expressions of many things.
Consciousness is infinite, so it's going to have an infinite number of perspectives that it's knowing. And so, So
you came to this non-duality through science, which is really amazing. That really amazes me. I came through this perspective through spirituality. I went through the yoga, the meditation, and then when that kind of like, this is not it, that kind of thing, and it's just a story, it's another character kind of thing. But I want to hear about your experience or your perspective in awakening or through science.
Well, okay, so
That's a
for
loaded
me,
question.
well, no, for me, it's really a combination of a lot of different things. Okay, so and again, um, I just want to say, there's no like prescription for awakening. It's like this thing is infinite, and I'm sure someone can awaken just by like stubbing their toe on the sidewalk, and boom, they're awake. Don't know how that's possible. Don't know how consciousness is doing it. That happens to them. Somebody can have a near-death experience and probably awaken to this, right? It's not. See, it's not the person. See, there's no one here. It's the illusion of someone here right now. It's consciousness that's like, oh, I'm the ultimate infinite creativity. Like I could awaken in different ways. I could, tag your it. I could tag you in all kinds of different ways. How am I going to tag myself? Oh, this way. This guy's going to meditate for 40 years and do it. And this guy, um, he's going to have a near-death experience. And this woman, she's going to get cancer, and on her deathbed, she's going to awaken, So it's like, it's consciousness that's doing it, and it's consciousness that's waking. None of us wake. We're just these ignorance of our own being. We're these concepts. We're an interference pattern of concepts here. Mm. And then we believe that we are this pattern. We believe, like Seth thinks that he's this physical body outside of consciousness, but that's impossible. Science has proved that that's impossible. So when I tell my story, it's like, okay, how did a Seth wake up? And this is no prescription, because Seth didn't actually wake. It was how did, let's say, this instantiation of consciousness, like how did it wake up this time? Like what was the little thing that it did? Well, I had sort of a koan that I was working on, which is the double slit experiment. People say, "Oh, that's not a koan. That's a material physical experiment." No, it's a koan hidden in the illusion of physics.
That was my next question. Actually, go on. I'm really interested in the double slit experiment.
Well, we can get on that, but I'm just going to give you the different elements that were going on simultaneously. So it's like I find Zen koans, like I listen to them, and I'm like, no, I never hear one, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm God. Okay, no, it doesn't do it for me, right? Maybe that's how some perspectives can wake, but they have different limits that they're knowing, and then boom, it's consciousness knowing through those limitations, saying, that's enough to wake me up. Okay, well, I'm pretty dense here. I don't. I was really lost, like extremely lost in this illusion. I really was like, I'm a human being, and this is physical and material, and I gotta live, and all this stuff. Yeah, I was really in there, and I really had a closed mind. I was very closed-minded. So I'm working on this little double slit experiment because, I got nothing to do. So I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? And instead of, watching some TV show or something, I just found this fascinating. I just found it interesting. So I started working on it. But at the same time, I started getting into meditation because I got into yoga. I ordered like an exercise program online, like one of these P90X,
Me
like,
too.
yeah, Thursday was yoga day.
Yeah.
Thursday was yoga day, right? So, and what I found was I was like, the best day of this P90X is yoga day. Like
30 minutes, right? 30 minutes of yoga.
Oh, this is an hour and 40.
Oh, that's right. I can't remember, but I did
the first like 40 minutes of it is like, lunges and things, but then you do some stretches and stuff. But I was like, after 90 days of this, I was like, the best day, the day I feel the best is this yoga stuff, right? And I know, like, there's going to be perspectives out there that are like, that's not real yoga. Well, yoga is, what does yoga mean? It means...
to yug, or to connect, union.
Mm-hmm. So they're like, this is not real yoga. I understand that. I got you. But I still felt great. I still loved it. I thought that it was great. So what I did was, I was like, well, there may be something to this Eastern stuff, right? Okay, so let me try meditation. So I started meditating, and right away, I had hallucinations from it. So I thought I had like brain cancer or something, and it really freaked me out. Like, so I stopped meditating. But then I was like, well, what the heck is hallucination? So I started looking up hallucinations, right? And then that got me onto this psychedelic insanity that I went on. So I investigated psychedelics and took it a little too far. So I, if you don't want to wake up, don't do psychedelics. So yeah, I did very, very dangerously high doses of psychedelics.
What
For
kind?
psilocybin
If
mushroom. So like, 10 to 15 grams at a time, once per month for 19 straight months.
Oh wow, that's
So
amazing.
yeah, you just start losing touch with reality. But it took about around the eighth month. That's when it started happening. That like you do a trip or something, and you don't know what's going on. It's like colors and all this kind of crazy stuff, and I don't know if I'm seeing aliens. I don't know what I'm seeing. It's crazy, and I think a lot of people they do either low doses or maybe there's something about intention or something. I don't know. I went in, and every single time I said, show me who I am. Complete darkness, no music, nothing, high dose, 10 grams. Show me who I really am every time. Boom, boom, boom. And then by the eighth time, it opened up and it did show me. And it's quite terrifying. Being infinite, I mean, you're not going to survive it. You don't live through this thing. So that started happening, and I didn't believe it. I was like, this is bullshit. There's no freaking way I'm God. Like, this is not possible. And
It's
so
like
I went back, and it happened again and again and again. And it gets, it, you think like, oh, it couldn't get any more insane than this. And it goes just, I had to stop because I couldn't even function. And I don't do it anymore. I can't do it. It's such a, it's so much of God and God's love. It's just too much. I don't know how to say. Like, so somehow this koan that I'm working on, this double slit experiment, the psychedelics, the yoga, the meditation, it took all of that to wake for me. And this right here, this is asleep. This is not awake.
got it.
I don't know anyone walking around here that's like awake. You're not awake. Awake is something that you don't want, because if you wanted it, you would be awake. So I've
Got it.
never met anyone that's been awake, because there's no one there. There's no one even here right now. You're not awake. There's no one to awaken. There's only awakenness, which I'm ignoring to have this little conversation with the illusion of you here. And I'm ignoring it because awake is fucking terrifying. It is, I don't want to say it's terrifying in like this fear.
Like the annihilation of you.
It's not, you're not afraid of your own death.
Mm-hmm.
You're already dead. You're afraid of your own infinite power, your own infinite being. You're you're God. I don't know how to say it any other way. And this is like super hilarious to me because I'm still an atheist. Like I said, I don't believe in God or anything. And this is why when this happened to me, I thought it was complete bullshit. I was like, this is just drugs or something, right? But you keep going, and you, once all the pieces kind of click in there, you're like, oh my God, it's true. You know, like, um, it's a certain, you're so certain of it. That's what certainty is. You, like, how would you know that you're really, you know it because that's what it is. That's what knowing is. It's pure certainty. It's pure, um, it's God. I don't know how to say it any other way. Um, I think, people say, "Oh, it's source," or no, it's God with a capital G. I used to refer it to as like the motherfucker of all time. Like this thing is like this motherfucker. It's like, whoo, like it is
Like, what the
huge.
fuck?
It is so mind blowing. There's no mind left. It is blown. It's gone. It's an insanity. It's complete insanity. Um, so yeah, I mean, um, I'm kind of stuck because I love scientific rational models. Like these things are fun. They're fun to play with. But this just blows that all up. And then you have to come to kind of grips with that. Like, okay, no matter what, no scientific model will ever capture the truth. Because by definition, every model is limited. So I have to ignore the infinite to know the limited. To know a limit, I have to ignore this other infinite limit. And you start to look at our mathematics and like Gödel's incompleteness theorem, and you see, no, it's not possible to calculate every finite answer within a set of mathematics because that mathematics is made out of ignoring an infinite set of it. So every illusion of something finite here is made of ignoring the infinite. So you will always have a part of being that is ignored to know any answer, to know any mathematics, to know any scientific model. These models and stuff only work within the game of ignorance. So within this little game of ignorance that I think I'm a human being here, I can describe that ignorance. That's what our physics is describing, the ignorance of our own being. And there are just different ways to describe it. And so we have one sort of belief system, a paradigm that we've all accepted that we're alive, we are physical material beings. This is a physical material world existing outside of consciousness. It had a beginning. So this is a system of beliefs. Now, consciousness is infinite. It could totally change. It could have a paradigm shift where you totally transcend those beliefs and have another system of beliefs. Oh, okay, here's another system of beliefs. There's only consciousness here, and it's the interference of these concepts that give rise to these images and thoughts and feelings and things. And it's a different system of beliefs. Okay. Unless you actually wake, become the totality, then that's no longer a belief, right? It's not a statement you've accepted, right? So you can have a conceptual religious acceptance of non-duality. You can say, oh yeah, there's non-duality because I read this book. There were statements in that book. I accept those as true. Oh yeah, all this non-duality stuff, that's true. Well, then you got a religion of non-duality. You don't have actual, you didn't actually wake up. You're practicing a religion of it. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. Like, oh, okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so like my work and all the stuff I'm doing with my scientific models and I'm trying to come up with stuff is just a new paradigm shift. It's still ignorance of what is. It's ignoring the truth. But it's just recontextualizing the game so that we play it in a different way. Because, see, if instead of believing that you are an existent human being in a physical material world that had a beginning, If instead the game was, oh no, we're all this consciousness, right? So that, well, then in the game, how are you going to treat others, right? I mean, I guess it could be the same way. You could say, it's all just me, so I could just mow everybody down. Or you could say it's all me. Why would I mow anybody down? Why would I hurt anybody? It's me. And so I think that latter is probably more accurate, because right now, I consider this finger to be me. I'm not going to chop it off. Like, that's not going to happen. So if I saw you as me, I'm not going to cut its head off. I see you as me. I don't want to harm myself. I walk outside. I see all these forests. I think they're separate than me. But no, under this new paradigm, it's all me. Oh, wait a minute. Can I really just deforest a whole planet? No, I'm not going to do that. In this model, there'd be nothing wrong with it, right? Because it's just you. Do whatever you want to yourself. But I think the tendency would be to not do that kind of stuff, because you love yourself. You don't want to hurt yourself.
True.
So, yeah, there's a lot there. So I don't know.
There's this.
I guess getting back to the whole start of the question was, yeah, I woke up in a weird way of a koan plus meditation plus yoga plus psychedelics. I was that hard-headed. I was that closed-minded. I needed all that stuff to break through this mind, this knowing of complementary opposites. I had so many of them in place, and they were so rigid. I was so inflexible with my mind. I had to blow it up. I had to destroy this activity of knowing these opposites. And it was shocking. It was completely, you don't realize how lost you are until you wake. Once you wake, you're like, I cannot believe this is what I was doing. It's mind blowing. Even every day I wake up in the morning, I'm just like, I can't. This is insanity. Having to go to work. Things like windowsills over here. Like, this is ridiculous. A windowsill? What the? I live in a box? Like, no, I'm an infinite God. What am I put myself in a box? This is ridiculous. The insanity of it now is it's hilarious. You just look at this whole thing is just one big cosmic joke.
Like a giant mind fuck.
Yeah, I mean, you're literally living, or it's the illusion of living within your own mind here. This is a labyrinth of concepts. You're conceptualizing your own being. You're walking around this being that is just a labyrinth of concepts made out of yourself, and you're just lost in it. You're just you're lost, and there's no like little instruction manual. So I guess this is why I like science, because the arbiter in science that justifies the beliefs that we know is experience. So the arbiter in science is not the publication, it's not peer review, it's not the hypothesis, it's not reading scientific papers. The arbiter is experience. Trust me, there are plenty of scientific papers that are peer-reviewed and are completely wrong. And on some sense, every paper is wrong because, again, it's limited. But within the illusion of this physical reality, right, you can write a paper that's describing this reality, and it could be totally false. You could have fabricated all the data. You could have made it up. Just going to make it up. And this actually happened with some papers, and there's huge scandals. And then I could publish it, get it peer reviewed. It's in a scientific journal. But the arbiter, see, there was no actual arbiter in that case, because you made up the data and the result. The publication, just because it was published, didn't make it right. Just because it was peer reviewed, didn't make it right. Just because you read it and accepted it didn't make it right. So it's the arbiter. What happens in experience is what determines what is correct. You could do an experiment today proving something. Never publish the results, ever. Still science. The science of it is what happens with an experience. Even if you've never published the results, never get it peer reviewed, it's still the truth of what's occurring. Mm-hmm. So that's what I like about science. The real cool part about science is that the arbiter is experience. Well then, okay, well, what is experience? It's the knowing of that which is occurring. Well, what is occurring? It's occurrence is what is being. Well, okay, what is being? It's this knowing. The being that's here is this knowing. Oh, it's not like a knowing being. It's a fusion. It's a knowing being. The being is the knowing, and the knowing is the being. So that's what's here. The arbiter is this unlimited, infinite truth. And then when you limit that truth and look through those limitations and you do science on things, it's that arbiter that's telling you what's true and false in this game, this illusion of finite. So that's why I love science, and I think science is cool. It's just that once you understand this, you can't take your. I think a lot of scientists take their practice like seriously. Like, no, this is the truth. But no, what you're finding are conceptually true beliefs within a belief system. You're not finding the truth because the truth is not limited.
Same. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, same thing with there's this romanticized ideas about enlightenment and enlightened teachers, and there's no such thing. But it's just the experience. How do I say it properly without offending anyone?
It doesn't matter. It's just you here.
That's right.
Offend away.
Offend away. There's this, and then I think people are looking for that, or they're looking for that enlightened guru or something. And there's just many different. They one teacher will say that I have the truth, and another teacher will say I have this proof and this, that, and this and this and that. Same with scientists.
Yeah, and I think to defend them a little bit would be to say it's consciousness. Let's just say you're some enlightened master, right? You're in Nepal or something, right?
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. No. But it's just say let's just say you're some enlightened master, and what do we mean by that, right? Obviously, if you're looking at some dude, right, this is not some enlightened master, right? It's limited, and if that person thinks they're a person, disseminate this limited. So that person though might have woken up, like they woke up in some way and they realized this thing. Now they come back here, they're asleep as the guru or whatever, but they remember, okay. I woke up, I see that all of this is not what we thought it was. Okay, and then how can I try to tell this to people? It's like, okay, in some sense, the trying to tell the people means like, no, you're not awake because there's no one else there. Some other sense is like, well, there's nothing else to do, and I find this a fun game to play, that I think I'm awake, and that there are really other people out there that I'm going to enlighten, They might think that's fun, so that's what they're doing. So I would just say that enlightened people walking around are just people that remember waking up and they're back asleep again, but they still remember something crazy happened to them. They can't put it into words. They know it's the truth, but they can't tell you this truth because there's no possible way to tell it to you. It's impossible. To tell you the truth, you'd have to limit the truth to language. This is not possible. The truth is that which is making the language. It's beyond the language. It's creating the language. You can't use it to language it. So there's yeah, people just can't, they don't understand this. So, um,
Yeah, same with the term of non-duality. What's non-duality really? It's nothing. It's a concept as well. It's just a whole bunch of ideas again, and some people turn into religion. And if you really look at it, there's nothing really.
yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you could do it.
Yeah, nothing
Um,
wrong.
I just, non-duality is like an artful way to say that there's only God here. That's it. But it's just,
Not
somebody
like
was
that.
like,
Like that. Yeah.
somebody was just, probably frustrated with some guru that said, "Hey, it's all one here." And they're probably saying, "Well, there's no such thing. One implies many, and oh, that's dualistic." I'm going to use this term non-duality to try to break that mind habit, and then it's stuck. People use it, but the word non-duality is itself dualistic. All words, all this is dualistic. I understand that. And so I mean, when I speak, I try to do the same thing. I try to use capital letters for infinite to point to infinite being here. But I understand that a capitalized word is still dualistic. I understand that, but I'm like trying to
That's
say
right.
okay, ignore that. Try to pretend for a second that these words are pointing to an infinite totality that has no limitation. And then okay, now we try to talk about this. But it's still it's not like I'm actually right in describing like that. No. Nothing I'm saying is right. Nothing I'm saying is true. It's made out of that truth that you're ignoring to be able to even hear it as words. To even see an image here moving around, you have to ignore infinite being to see the illusion of what you think are hands moving here. If you saw everything as the infinite totality, there would be no difference between this hand and this little space here and then the face and this background. You would just see it as one totality. And there would be no difference between that and the seeing of it and your body and the computer and everything. It would be one because there would be no difference between them. Differences, this is what differences is the mind. This is not that. This is what a concept is. This is what the activity of mind is. And again, there's nothing to that mind other than the knowing that this is not this. They're literally made out of knowing, which is the only being that's here. And then you're looking through these opposites, thinking that there's hands and images and thoughts and feelings. And no, there's none of that. It's just knowing, but you're paying attention to this activity of complementarity of the mind. And so, the mind is not like, it's not an entity. Like, it's not like Seth has a little mind and in his mind, there's this. No, the mind is this whole thing. This is the mind out here. The mind, this whole image that just look at your entire field of view. And now that's the mind. You're literally looking at all these concepts at every shape and color and position and everything you're seeing. These are all concepts. That's what you're looking at. Now, within that visual field of view that you've got, that's got all those concepts, also take all the thoughts that you're knowing. They're not in here. The thoughts are in this whole totality. The feelings are in this whole totality. So just have this huge visual field of view. Put all your thoughts in that visual field of view, all your feelings in that visual field of view. Okay, you've got this one totality of thoughts, feelings, images. That's what you are. And that's this ignorance of your own being. And then every frame of your infinite being is like the same image with the next thought in it, with the next feeling, and it's just one after another, after another, after another, after another, in an infinite array of concepts that you're knowing. And when you change out the concepts, well, now I'm knowing this concept. Well, maybe a different color appeared in your visual field of view. I'm knowing a different concept. Oh, that's a different thought that arises in that field of view. Okay. After a while, you might get tired of sitting down. You've got a different feeling in your ass. That's just consciousness knowing a different feeling. It's just the knowing of feelings, the knowing of thoughts, the knowing of images. It's all in this singularity of consciousness that you're knowing, that consciousness is knowing. And then you're forgetting that that's what's happening. And then you're thinking that, like, oh, no, there's a little thinker inside here thinking thoughts. No, it's consciousness. And a thought goes by, it's knowing it. And then it's saying, oh, there's a little Seth here thinking this thought. No, that's not what's here. It's an infinite number of concepts that you're all compositing together to create this illusion of a perspective here. And that's just the model that I have of this little game of ignorance. I don't, you should, when you wake, you're not some like, oh yeah, I'm this singularity. I'm this like nothing singularity. When I woke up, no. When you wake, you're God. Like in the fullest sense of the word, you are a being of God. It is, there's nothing I can describe it because it's so crazy. It's God. That's it. And that sounds crazy coming from a scientist, right? People say you're not. People say you're not a scientist. You're some woo-woo bullshit guy now. Fine, you can say whatever you want. It doesn't matter. The quantum physicists, if they really look at what they're saying there's nothing here but infinite potential that is then limited, and limiting of that potential makes it uncertain. If everything's made out of uncertain, limited potential, then certainty, consciousness, must be infinite potential. So if there is consciousness, and there has to be because you're knowing these words right now, you're aware of them, you're knowing them. So there must be knowing. Because, again, if I use science, like the arbiter in science is experience. If you are experiencing knowing content right now, then there is consciousness. Well, if there is consciousness, and consciousness is knowing, and knowing is certainty, and all of the content is uncertain, and all of our physics is saying anything that's uncertain is this limited potential is uncertain. Well, then certainty has to be unlimited potential. That's God. That's what it is. That's what they're saying. And then they want to hold that position of that there's nothing here until you measure it. Okay? And again, for people who are like, oh, what is a measurement? Measurement is the assignment of a value. So there's nothing but the infinite. I take that infinite and I assign a value to it. Well, the only way to do that is to ignore the infinite. I now focus on a piece of it. I've got a value, right? So the only way to do that is you've got these concepts. You interfere these concepts, and then I ignore like these vertical limits. And when I take two concepts together, this one and this one, and I square them, I multiply them together, I'm only looking at this resulting interference. So if we call this the real direction, if we call this the imaginary direction, and this is the real direction, I only see the squaring of this. So the finite, the stuff that I can grasp, is made out of ignoring these verticals. So I can grasp this here as the illusion of finite by ignoring the infinite. And this is what a measurement is. It's assigning a value to the infinite. That's what these guys are saying, right? So they're saying that, but then they're saying that they're holding a totally contradictory point of view of there's a physical material universe out here. Well, no, there's only the infinite. They're saying that there's only the infinite here, and anytime we look into what all this stuff is made out of, there's only the infinite until we measure it. There's no physical material universe here. There's nothing outside of it. The thing that you think is outside of it is the measurement that you're making.
Mm.
So the measurement that I'm making is my field of view. I've taken infinite consciousness and I'm knowing values like, oh, that there is white. That there is a guy's face. These are all measurements. They're all values that I've assigned to this image. Behind you right now, right? It's totally blank, right? It's not black. It's not white, right? If I look at the little screen here, like this is black. Behind me is not black. Like look behind you right now while facing forward. There's not black. It's not white. It's nothing. There's nothing there at all. I can't say anything about it. It's not limited to a finite value. There's no value assigned to it. Now I turn around and that blank behind me, that infiniteness becomes measured. I am now assigning values to it. You see? And
That's
so,
brilliant. Thank you.
well, this is like back in the 20s and stuff. These quantum physicists. This is
Yeah.
what they said. This is like these guys are all so close to it.
Yeah.
They're all so right on it. They all somehow we got away from that. I don't know. I don't know. Like there wasn't another group of scientists that took up the
torch or
where they left off.
yeah.
Like, and again, I'm not even again. This is all,
No, this is great. I'm a big fan of non-duality, and I just love talking about it. And
yeah.
quantum physics is also so fascinating. It's just wow. And this is just really illuminating talking to you about this. Thank you so much. So much
Yeah.
beautiful information here.
Well, I think that, I mean, quantum, and then again, this is where a lot of these scientists will say, like, oh, a lot of these woo woo bullshit religious people will take quantum physics and try to make something of it because it's so spectacular. Like, the spectacular thing about quantum physics is its accuracy and its ability to appear to describe our apparent reality. But it's really sort of they got there in it in my model of things they got there through the wrong reasons. So they would like try to describe like for example, if these fingers were two slits in the double slit barrier, right? And so shining light through them, right? You couldn't determine which slit the light went through. So you have an undetermined object here of two slits. You don't know which one the light went through. So in trying to describe that, you get a 10 slit image out of it. So in trying to describe that 10 slit image, they're saying that is the interference pattern, that this pattern of lines that you're seeing is the interference pattern. So they're thinking in terms that this is a physical material object outside of consciousness that creates a 10 slit image, and the math they use describes interference. Okay, well, no, they got this whole thing wrong. The interference pattern is the entire field of view. It's not this little 10-finger image. It's the detector, the scientist within the field of view, it's the walls, it's the entire field of view is the interference pattern. That's the interference that's occurring. And when you have an undetermined object, when you have something that's undetermined, what you're doing is you're flipping these concepts. Instead of consciousness knowing, like, if this is known and this is unknown, or if this is determined and this is what is determined made of, knowing that it's not undetermined. So its consciousness is then, instead of multiplying two, let's say if you had one concept here and another one here, you multiply them together, you just see this one, because you just see the squaring of them. You see these two, and you're ignoring these guys. What it's doing is it's taking this one, and it's knowing this one times this one, instead of these two. It's like flipping these concepts so that now you have an undetermined limit that's like creating a hole in the entire interference pattern. So the entire interference, every single concept that could possibly interfere in is interfering with your point of view right now. And then you're ignoring or you're paying attention to the undetermined limit within a concept. And you're interfering that with the whole interference pattern. And then you get this crazy pattern of lines. So it's really the opposite of what they think. It's the interference pattern is not the little light pattern that you're seeing there. The interference pattern is your entire field of view. And that's what they're describing. But they don't understand that that's what's happening. I'll have to draw that out or something because
that's brilliant.
Confusing. But it's this is what's happening.
I like
and people don't understand this because they're like they don't think like, how could I be knowing every single concept? Well, okay, let's just take an example. You know what a giraffe is, right? How do you know what a giraffe is? This is a giraffe made out of knowing that it's not giraffe. So a giraffe is not an elephant. A giraffe is not a star. A giraffe is not a plant. Okay, so now I know what a giraffe is. I got giraffe, which is made out of an infinite set. So this one little piece of potential is made out of knowing that it's not an infinite set of other animals. Okay, so right now, in your field of view, what's interfering with your field of view is not giraffe. By ignoring giraffe, I'm ignoring it. I'm not seeing a giraffe in my field of view right now. So I'm ignoring that. But what is not giraffe made of? I can't have a not giraffe here by itself. There's no such thing. Not giraffe has to be made of knowing it's not the giraffe. So you're ignoring giraffe. It's somewhere in the blank behind you here. You're looking at not giraffe. Well, same thing. For a caveman, 1 million years ago, he was knowing not iPhone. He was knowing not email. They're like, well, these guys couldn't even know exactly. They never knew what an email was or an iPhone or a Tesla. They didn't know what that was millions of years ago because they were interfering with their field of view and they were knowing the opposite set of that. So right now, you're knowing everything. Something that happens 10 million years from now, some crazy piece of technology that lets you go across the whole apparent physical universe, you're knowing not that right now. I'm knowing not time travel. I'm knowing not teleportation. I'm knowing not blah, 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 some crazy thing. Then the consciousness then flips that and says, well, no, now I want to know this thing. And you flip it to the opposite. So you are knowing every single concept. You're just, from your point of view, a lot of them are flipped that you're seeing the infinite sets. Well, infinite sets, they're infinite. They're not limiting. They're a conceptual infinity. So the interference of them doesn't produce anything graspable that's finite. So that's just the issue with it. And then it's really, I mean, it's fucking brilliant. I mean, God is a brilliant motherfucker because it's really convincing.
Yeah.
And without your entire apparent life, you've been knowing through this activity of knowing opposites. So there's no contrast. There's nothing for you in this game of life here to say it's not really physical and material. Because you've never terminated this mind activity. You never stopped paying attention to it. Instead of paying attention to the knowing that's knowing these opposites, you're paying attention to one opposite or the other. But if you paid attention to the knowing that was knowing the opposites, you would just see all knowing here. So this is why you meditate, right? This is why you do psychedelics, right? To perturb, to stop that mind activity or to disturb it in some way so that you can see it. Otherwise, it's just clear on clear. It's transparent to you. So either something has to happen to you in life where this becomes apparent, or no, you really enjoyed the ignorance of your own being through that perspective that maybe never ever wakes up because you wanted to not wake up. You wanted to know being a mailman or something, delivering mail your whole life, and that was your life, and um, you never woke up, and you had a little fun little game of ignorance, and that was it. Other people, there are other perspectives, God wants to know waking up from the illusion of that perspective.
That's great.
And all of this is totally wrong, and probably, it doesn't matter, and that's okay, but this is fun. This is what I enjoy doing. Yeah.
This is so much fun. This is so great talking to you about this, and
Yeah, I mean, it's just, what do you want to do in life? I mean, things that I think it would be cool to have like a Star Trek universe, and it'd be cool to meet alien races, and travel across galaxies, and this would be fun. Well, you're not going to do that with the physics of a physical material world. This is not going to happen. Like, you have to advance your physics. It's just like, you're never going to have iPhones in Newtonian mechanics. Like, you have to transcend the limitations of your physics to play different games. So if we want to play a different game, we have to change our physics. Well, the thing is your physics is kind of at a limit because it's being contextualized by a certain group of beliefs. We have to embrace a different group of beliefs to take physics to the next level. I mean, maybe we can do it some other way. I don't know. This thing's infinite, so I could not tell you. But from what I can see, it's like, yeah, you want to go to some other galaxy or something, or interact with aliens somewhere, like, you're already all-knowing. There's only a singularity of being. There is no actual distance or time or anything. So if you're looking at a galaxy out there and you're like, well, yeah, that's a billion light years away, we'll never get there as human beings. Because even if you could get on a ship and in a billion years, out of, give me a billion years, you won't be humans anymore. You'd be evolved into something else, right? Within the game of beliefs that evolution is real. So, like, no, you couldn't get there. But you could get there. You're already there. You're already it. You're just ignoring it. So is there some way in our physics to, in a new physics that's contextualized within non-duality, like, is there some way to get there, or to create some, you're looking at elements, uh-oh, you're frozen. Are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. No,
So
I'm here.
you're
just mesmerized by this.
Okay. So, you're looking at things like elements, like, oh, that's helium, and you're looking at these at like their physical material. No, these are concepts. These are conceptual interference products. So if you are able to look at them in a new way through this paradigm shift, maybe you could come up with some way to traverse great distances, or come up with new technologies or something. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure quantum physics would have drove Newton crazy, or it almost drove Einstein nuts. He couldn't figure it out, but he sort of invented quantum physics, so it's all crazy. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But and that's another cool thing about quantum physics, is that you find out that relativity is quantum physics. You see, once you solve the double slit experiment, you see that there's nothing outside of consciousness. That's what it's telling you. Then you're seeing that these concepts that are interfering within consciousness, this is what relativity is. This is relative to this. Like, this is knowing that it's not this, that, or whatever, right? This is not that. My reference frame is not your reference frame. So when all these things interfere, and I've got Seth's point of view, Seth's reference frame, oh yeah, It's relative to yours.
Mm-hmm.
So relativity arises from the mind, from quantum physics. And they're linked. They're the same being. So um, there is no space-time continuum that's physically existence outside of consciousness where there are relative positions. No. The illusion of the space-time continuum is the composite of relative positions.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'm going to ask my last question because it's over an hour now, but I would love to continue this. I can talk to you for like the whole day, and then we can just put a whole bunch of YouTube videos, for like a marathon of 24 hours or something. This is really fascinating. But
yeah,
the
well,
last question is
we'll save some of it for
the
the
conference.
nothing conference.
um, what is your take on free will?
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah, how
So,
about this one?
so ooh, this is a good one. So, what does freedom mean, right? Freedom is not constrained, right? So you've got freedom is made out of knowing that it's not equals freedom. So what's not free? Things that are not free are constrained. So freedom is not constrained. So, okay, Seth doesn't have free will because he's constrained to being Seth. Seth, if I'm Seth, I'm not free to be Emerson.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm Seth, I'm not free to be Charlie. I'm constrained. So Seth doesn't have free will. Seth has constrained choice. I'm constrained to these limits. I am limited, but I have an apparent choice of limitations that are constraining me. So there's only free will for consciousness, because consciousness is unlimited. So that which is infinite has no limitation. That which is infinite is what freedom is. The ability to, this is what infinite potential is, the ability to become any apparent thing. That's what freedom is. Freedom ignores its own freedom to limit itself to the illusion of something that's not free. So I'm only free to the extent that I know who I really am. The closer to God I get to, the more free I become. The further away from God I go, the more constrained I am. So this is just, I think Alan Watts said something like that. Like, you're only free to the extent that you know who you are. But, when you really know who you are, you're God. Then you're totally, completely free to do whatever you want. Problem is, don't know what I want. That's why I'm doing this. I'm ignoring myself. Super creative. Created this whole thing. Like, this is an insanity. If you really think about what's going on here, you're like, this is the most insane thing. Didn't know what I want, so I got this little surprise here. Boom. Okay, you're a human being in this world, and there's all this crazy crap going on right now. This is insanity. This is an insanity. This makes no sense. It's totally crazy. There's no reason or anything other than I don't know what I want. So, boom, this is what you got. This is crazy. So, yeah, free will. The reason why it's such a contentious issue is because if you have there's a lot of Christians, right, out there, Catholics and stuff, right? So they have to have free will. See, if you don't have free will, you can't be punished for your sins because you were never free to make those sins. You're never free to choose sinning, and thus you can never be punished. Well, then if you can't be punished, if it's all God's fault, you can't blame God in the Catholic religion, right? You can't blame God because God is all good, right? So that's why there's this contentious thing, because they're trying to defend their religion. Give that up. Give up all this philosophy on free will and all, and just look, define what freedom is. You're not free if you are limited. If you are limited in form to a body or to any, you are not free because you're not free to not be that body. You have to like really look into, and this is the thing is people don't look at, this is a game here. Learn the rules. There are rules. There are definitions of words here. If you don't understand the definitions of the words, these little rules that you set out for yourself here in this game, then you're going to totally fool yourself all the time. Or if you hold two different definitions for something, kind of before a conversation, you almost have to say like, okay, well, when I mean free, I mean unconstrained. Okay, well, is a human body constrained? Well, yeah, it's stuck to this planet Earth by what you believe to be gravity. Well, that constrains it. It's not, it can't just fly off. Well, then that's limiting it. It's constraining it. Oh, okay. So, you're not really free. You're constrained. So I can't really talk about free will like that then. I didn't think of it like that. I just thought, free will had to do with, choosing good things over bad things. No. That's constrained choice. So yeah, you do have constrained choice. Within this game, there's an infinite number of concepts I'm knowing. I could know a lot of different things, but right now, like I could walk in take 360 degrees, chop it up into an infinite number of directions, right? I could subdivide any degree into any, finer and finer point. So I could walk in an infinite number of directions away from this conversation right now. I am free to do that. But I am constrained. My steps are constrained to like 1 meter in length. I cannot take one step and end up in Hong Kong. I'm constrained to this human body. So yes, I have an infinite number of choices, but those choices are constrained to the limits that I am knowing now. The limits of Seth. Oh, Seth is a human. Seth only has a stride of 1 meter. He cannot take one step and end up in Hong Kong, even though he's pretty free in certain conceptual dimensions, but he's not really free. He's not free in the sense of what free will really means. So that's a great question, because I think it reveals, when you ask people that question, it kind of reveals like if they understand what unlimited means. Do you know what real freedom is? Do you know what infinite is? It's not an object. It's not something large. It's not something big. It's not something small. It's not a measure. It is the absolute infinite singularity, knowing being of consciousness. It's infinite potential, the ability to do anything, or the ability to appear as the illusion of anything, or the ability to know the illusion of any apparent thing. But that's what infinite is. That's what real freedom is. And you are that, but you're ignoring it, so that we can have this little conversation.
Well, thank you so much, Seth. That was, wow. Thank you so much. This is amazing. I can't wait for you to be at the Nothing Conference. I'm going to add, your setcaustic.com, and you have a YouTube channel as well. And thank you. That was mind blowing, and I appreciate you.
Well, thanks for having me on, and I do enjoy talking about this stuff. I had kind of taken a pause, because I kind of got stuck on this math, so I'm kind of just trying to figure out what I want to do. It's very hard to write this stuff down, because any statement you make currently is contextualized in the paradigm of material physicalism, and it's like, oh no, I'd have to explain something before that statement. And then I'd have to explain those statements before that statement. And then before you know it, it's like, well, I'm trying to write chapter 1, but I have to write chapter 9 first. And I keep getting on the same, and it's like, I don't know how to write this stuff down. I don't know how. I think the easiest way is these little conversations. And you can see, now you can see So why don't Buddha didn't write nothing down, because you can't
Yeah.
you'll trap somebody in this little illusion here, and it really has to be this inquiry, because if you believe anything I'm saying, you just screwed yourself. You just created a belief, and knowing is not believing. It's made out of knowing, but it's believing is what is, you know, in the beginning was the word. In the beginning wasn't the Big Bang. In the beginning was a statement that you accepted. You accept that statement, you got this belief, and now you've got this little game here of ignorance. You're ignoring the truth to believe these statements. That's what's happening.
On that thought, have you thought about? Do you have a book out, or do you have any books that you've
No, I would
really
say
so
I
great, or an
yeah,
or
I'm
something?
yeah, I try. So I like just to on my website. I've got a little paper in there. That paper is an old paper that I didn't. I started rewriting. So that paper there, it's gonna be hard to. It's not that great. So I'm rewriting it, but then I got stuck on this math, so it's kind of in no man's land right now. So then I was like, oh, I'll write this book, and then the book is it's just hard to. Um, it's hard to convey. So, chipping away at it, but I guess a good place to start is the YouTube channel. I've got
Yeah,
some content there, and then
this is
maybe,
great content that we're talking about. The one that this is so great.
yeah, well, maybe that's the thing too. Is like on the YouTube channels, like I'll put like little links to like these little talks that we have. These are probably better than any of the episodes that I do. So these little conversations, it flows like
It's
in a
so
really,
fluid,
yeah,
so good.
it just flows, and so I think these are kind of cool, and you just listen to them, but listen to them. I would say don't believe me. Listen to them, and then you've got to start to do inquiries like, okay, Seth said I'm not free. I think he's full of shit. I feel free. I can do whatever I want. Okay, can you? Go to the wall, try to put your fist through it. Well, maybe some big dude can. Okay, well, find a harder wall. Can you put your fist through a sheet of iron? You can't? Well, then you're not free to do that. Oh, wait, I'm constrained. I was thinking about it, but then I actually tried to put my fist through the wall and I couldn't do it. I'm constrained from putting my. I didn't realize I wasn't that free. What else can't you do? So don't take it too far, because you can do a lot of things, but there are consequences for those things. So in this little game here, yeah, I could go take all my clothes off and run around the streets naked. I can do that. I'm totally free. But then, the police are going to arrest you, right? So you have to understand within the game there are consequences. But you can still test this out. Like, how free am I? Oh, no, I've got constraints. If I want to know, being a human being that is alive, I cannot do things that would kill me. Otherwise,
There
I would
is
cease being alive.
I think there's a scientific test on free will. I don't know what it's called. I read the little paper on it. I can't remember what it is, but it's about. I'll research it, and we'll talk more about. We'll have a part two on free will.
Yeah,
Like
there's a lot of scientific
this
tests
could
out
be like a
there.
2 hour talk about free will. It's so amazing.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
simple, but it's so amazing. But it's not really simple. I can't even explain it. But well, we will end on that thought. I wish that you can do a part two. And thank
Oh
you
yeah,
so much.
we can do a part two. So
Okay.
we'll definitely be in touch. And
Yeah, thank you so much. This is great.
thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank
Bye,
you.
Emerson.
Bye bye. Bye, Seth.